Hey everybody, this is the California Gardenscapes here at the San Diego Botanic Garden, and I wanted to first just take a moment to highlight the state of this garden. We really haven't had much rain this winter, and the natural lands behind me and in other parts of the county have barely woken up. But in our garden, with just a little bit of supplemental care, the place is starting to light up and looking a lot like spring. So for starters, you should just come to visit to see all of the sunflowers blooming. We have little sun cups coming out. We have new poppies emerging, all kinds of fun, colorful sprays that will probably carry through for the next couple or few months. With all that said, I wanted to talk about one particular plant that's also coming into bloom now. This is Rosa minutifolia. So Rosa is like rose. That's the genus for the whole rose group. And minutifolia, the species for this one, means miniature leaf, essentially. And you can see that in the plant here. The prickles are characteristically rose as well, but what you really should take a note of, considering the season as we're getting into February and Valentine's Day and all, is these really picturesque, pink, simple, classic rose flowers. So this is a really fun species to have in our garden, not only because it's incredibly durable, it's drought hardy as much as anything, it blooms without any care, but it's actually nearly extinct in the wild as well. And when it comes to botanical gardens, we're always trying to get a plant conservation bent into our work here. And this plant hits all of those marks. So I wanted to show you guys, first of all, that it's coming into bloom and what a neat species that's very little known. Perfect for gardens if you can get your hands on some, even though that can be tough to do. So in the effort of making this plant more abundant and available, I actually wanted to use today as another opportunity to talk about propagation. And if you note, the plant grows in these kind of arching canes like brambleberries, for instance, raspberries, blackberries, and similar to those plants, which are also in the rose family, wherever these stems successfully touch down and stick to the ground, they'll actually set roots. And that's how we have this plant in the first place. This plant that I'm in the midst of is actually from a piece of the last plant remaining north of the border, which is down on Otay Mesa. Believe it or not, this plant almost exclusively exists by vegetative propagation at this point, at the hands of gardeners like us. So let me show you what it takes to actually make more of these. Right here, we have a cluster of the plant, and it's actually still attached to this bigger part of the plant over here. So this is a natural layer. It's almost like an cutting that's rooted while it's still on the plant. And the nice thing about this is that this plant gets to be well established before even becoming a separate plant. But I'm gonna do that right now, essentially cutting the umbilical cord in a certain sense. And now this plant is isolated and it's only using its own root system. It's an independent plant at this point. I'll show you that this thing is already very well established underground, and really calling this propagation at my hands is a little bit like cheating, because all I'm doing is taking a piece of what is the largesse of this wonderful species. Part of why I wanted to do this is because you notice that it's actually crowding this agave next to it. This is one of the hybrids of the Shaw's agave, like I talked about in another video. And botanical gardeners like us have the best problems in that we have awesome plants essentially competing with other awesome plants, and we have to make the judgment calls as to who gets what space. So I want more of this Rosa minutifolia, but not necessarily in the midst of this agave. So I just dug out that piece, and I got to be aware of the prickles, but believe it or not, that's a whole new plant here. So what we'll do is to take this into our nursery. I'll actually cut back the top a little bit so that it doesn't have so much leaf material on it. Put this into a very quick draining medium and let it sit in the pot for a season. And then look at what a spectacular plant specimen already. You can't get a cutting this size to root unless it's already rooted, which is what we have here.